creating an aquascape, maintaining an aquascape, maybe even do a final shot for a contest or just for you as a nice memory. I'm covering a lot of topics within this video, so please stay tuned. As a base layer, I like to start every aquarium with some sort of porous volcanic rock. In this case I use JBL Volcano and JBL Volcano powder, and it's ideally suited as a basis for every nature aquarium because the porous volcanic rock ensures the water circulation at the bottom, and it also promotes the settlement of microorganisms. It's rich in valuable minerals and trace elements, and I recommend to use it where possible. It's not the most aesthetic substrate, so I always try to hide it in the back and underneath sand or soil. That is a perfect transition. Soil is an active substrate. The grain size is about 2 to 3 mm. It ensures proper growth and stimulates development of reddish colors. It can also be used without any other type of bottom layer, and I love planting plants in there because it's the easiest to plant in. I decided to use some cosmetic sand for the foreground, so I'm brushing the soil to the back as well, so I have a clean look afterwards. In this case I decided to try something new, and I got some Vio Cimarron sand, which is 100% natural origin and has a multicolor and multi-grain size, which I really like. Usually I don't recommend to cover soil with sand, but since the grain of the sand is quite similar, I don't really fear that the sand will sink into the soil and condense the substrate too much. So I'm layering everything very flat so it looks nice in the front, and then the substrate is done. Now it's time to introduce the hardscape, and since I really don't like gluing stuff inside an aquarium because all the glue can fall down, make branches and stones dirty, I really like to glue a lot of the hardscape outside the aquarium and just add some details later. This is why I made this bigger piece, this bigger clump. It consists of about, I don't know exactly, but maybe 14 to 15 branches with a big piece of stone attached to everything, so it cannot float up. This is already really a nice structure, but obviously there is lots of details missing, and I'm adding stone after stone and also some branches in the background, and it's really helpful to have the basic structure of the hardscape and introduce it as a whole into the tank if possible, if it's not too complex, and then add details afterwards because you don't know exactly the measurements. I always try to add the peripheral stones and detail stones afterwards, and that's really helpful in making life easy. This branch here is just a perfect example. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to add it, but since the tank is just 30 centimeters deep, I wasn't exactly sure if I can create everything at once, so I decided to glue it in later. And I always have my glass razor beside the tank when I create an aquarium, so I can easily see if the razor will fit behind or in front of a branch or a stone, and I can clean the glass. Here I'm adding some more details. And I already talked about the cigarette filter method. Basically you can take every kind of pulp and some cyanoacrylate superglue. It should be quite liquid, because otherwise it's not really sinking in to the pulp, and it has to, so it really creates a very quick thermal reaction and hardens within seconds. Sometimes this also produces vapor, which you should not inhale under any circumstances. However, this is a good sign that the thermal reaction is taking place and the compound is hardening quickly. As you can see, I added some stones here and there, some for detail, but this one in the back is definitely also there to completely ensure that there is no branches floating up. And here I wasn't completely happy with how the hardscape looked, but I wasn't able to find the right piece. Sometimes you really have to consider if you add something and if it really looks good or not. But yeah, since I was going to plant something in the back, I decided at the end to not add something here because it looked not natural. I already really like the look of the tank, but now it was time to add some gravel. And I also choose a product from Vio, which is the Belladonna gravel. I think it really matches good with the Cimarron scent. So yeah, just pouring it in, trying to make it look natural. And yeah, I really like how this details, just bring more life into the hardscape. Soil has nutrients in it, sand doesn't, and that's why I'm adding some root capes in the soil here, especially because I'm going to plant some Cryptocorynes. So I thought about where to plant these Cryptocorynes. And Cryptocorynes in other species like Echinodorus, for example, are plants that absorb nutrients primarily through their roots. The root caps will therefore provide the plants in the sand with additional fertilizers. I insert new root caps every 3 to 5 months. Since I want the Cryptocorynes to benefit the most from the root caps, I plant them first now, place them especially directly where the root caps are in. I got some really nice in vitro, so tissue culture cups from Tropica and Aquascape. I'm gonna post all the links in the description obviously and show you where I plant which plants exactly. In the foreground I plant some Eleocharis sp mini, so it's a mini hair grass. It's not growing too tall and will not cover too much, yet I have to make sure it will not cover everything, so from time to time it's necessary to pull out some of the roots and some of the plants again to keep this clean look. On the left and the right side I planted a mixture of Ranunculus inundatus, the so-called river buttercup. I hear a lot of people saying it's a very difficult plant. I had issues as well, but in the last attempts somehow it worked out really well. And yeah, as you can see in the final results, the plant really took over the tank. I also planted Marsilea hirsuta, the rough water clover. I never really saw a lot of this plant in the tank. There are some branches in there, but it's barely visible. I also added some Rotala ramosia florida and some Ludwigia palustris super red as a contrast. And in the background I added some hairgrass, the Eleocharis acicularis. And on the left and the right side I went for some Eriocaudon Vietnam, a really nice and interesting plant that will be available at Tropica soon as well. And in the right outer and left outer corner I planted some Cyprus halfray. I think it really looks awesome in the tank, especially in the beginning, but I got lots of problems with beard algae, so yeah, later in the video you see that I decided to remove it and replace it with some other plant. The substrate is now fully planted. In the next step I then clamped the epiphytic plants such as the Java fern here between the branches and attached the mini Christmas moss to the wood using JBL Pro Haru plant glue. This is the final picture of the ready hardscape and planted aquarium, and I really like how this turned out. The plants on the left and the right really kind of make a nice frame around the hardscape, and from day one it really feels like nearly a ready aquarium. Always keep in mind that tissue culture plants are grown in a very humid environment, and if you place them in your tank before there is any water in there, they quickly dry out. So please spray everything and keep it moist, so yeah, you don't have damaged plants. I use some paper towel to prevent anything from floating up when the water is entering. It can quickly happen that the sand or the gravel or whatever moves and plants are floating. But yeah, with the paper towel I prevent this from happening. I have an RO system and a canister that can hold around 310 liters. That's around 82 gallons. And I remineralized the water in the canister already. Filling up the tank usually would only need 2 to 3 minutes. But yeah, I'm starting it slowly to also prevent plants from floating up. The whole creation process was recorded by my friend Premek. Thanks a lot, buddy. You were a great help that weekend. His name is Wolfie on YouTube. I'm gonna put his canal link into the description, so please check out. He has some great content as well. Since Wolfie took all the footage, I had no camera and no cameraman. And that changed. So now I got a camera, but I can only show you a few pictures how the tank developed until just a couple of days ago. This is the first picture of the fully filled tank after it cleared up. And after some time I thought I want to replace the background foil. I liked it, but somehow I liked it better with clear or with a blue-white gradient foil. And behind the foil there is obviously a light screen which brightens up the tank a lot. They also consume much power, and it's not always cheap to buy one of these light screens, but you can also use a high reflective foil in the background, so the tank also gets a lot of depth with that. This example here is from my buddy Carsten. He uses the foil in the background, and yeah, what can I say? Absolutely stunning tank. You also find him on Instagram and on YouTube. I post both links in the description as well. Amazing tank, and the foil is really doing the great job here. Now you saw a lot about the creation of the tank. The next step is maintaining a tank. And I made a session where I will show you now how I maintain the tank. And the first thing, every maintenance session that I do is I look into the tank for about 5 minutes and just write a to-do list or keep it in mind. What are the points that I want to do? And we jump right into that now. Bothered me for a long time already, barely visible from the front, but here you can see there is some humidity between the background foil and the backlight, and on the picture it doesn't look really nice, and from the side it looks even more somehow disturbing, really like a artificial dot in the background. So that's gonna be something that we have to clean. The glass needs a cleanup as well, so we're gonna scrape the glass with a glass razor, pro razor. The glass in and outflow need to be cleaned. I like the glass look better than metal jet pipes, for example. They get a bit dirty quicker. I have a spare set for every tank, so I can just take them away, put them in some chlorine. I always collect from the other tanks and make one chlorine bath, and then I clean them all at once. Ranunculus is creating quite some offshoots that we have to cut out a bit, so it's not going to be at the front completely. There is some brush algae on some of the branches, and I'm gonna brush it in with some easy carbo. And then I'm ready to start. First things first, the beginning is always turning off the filter. I don't want any particles that I'm scraping off the glass to land in the filter. And then I close the hose connection block at first, and then I'm going to start scraping the glass. Usually I would recommend to turn out or take out the CO2 injection and the in and outflow at first. Somehow I never do it, I don't know, bad habits. I think it would be much easier to do that first. Taking out the outflow is usually quite simple compared to the inflow, because it is much further down in the tank. What I cannot show you here is how I remove the tube from the glass. I can always recommend to push the tube a bit onto the glass at first, because afterwards it's much easier to take off the tubing. As I said, the inflow is usually a bit more complicated, especially in my case here. I have a custom cabinet. This is an IKEA Stockholm cabinet that I customized, so I have to take out the inflow that way, and there is also always some water leaking out, but I somehow found a quite okay way to do it. Please always keep in mind to directly clean the surface of your cabinet so it's not getting water stains. Every now and then I detach the tubes from the filter, but that's not necessary every time. Usually I just use a tube brush to clean the tubings. There's lots of dirt accumulating in the tubings that way. I always try to drain out as much as possible, and the best way would also be if you turn on the filter again to let the first maybe 1-2 liters rinse into a bucket so you don't have all the dirt that you just scraped from the tubing into your tank. I explained earlier that usually I use chlorine solution, chlorine mixed with water, to at first make the dirt a bit more loose in the glassware. In this case, I thought I'm gonna show you how I clean the pipes anyways, and I'm using the ADA pipe brushes because they are much smoother, much lighter. It's really easy to clean glass pipes with it, and I can really recommend to buy these. I'm gonna drop a link in the video description for you to check out. Actually, I would do the same thing if the glassware would have laid in a chlorine solution. Just use these brushes, rinse out the water thoroughly, especially if you use a chlorine solution before. Make sure there is no leftovers in there. So I regularly let a few liters run through before I introduce them back into the tank. But since I replaced them completely, I also don't think there will be much in there after a couple of weeks when I replace them again. And I use a little sponge to clean the outside of the glass as well, because on the outside, especially from the parts within the tank, there's also lots of dirt there that can accumulate very quickly, and with a sponge you can quickly rinse it off. When I siphon out the water, I usually try to see if there is any dirt accumulating at some spots. I did vacuum and siphon the gravel and the sand in the foreground a couple of weeks ago already. It's quite clean, but on the moss there's also always some dirt accumulating. It can be fish poop, it can be just like dissolving matter, plant matter, whatever it could be. Also the wood is often decomposing a bit, so there's some dirt accumulating under the moss. And I always use a little turkey plaster or the smaller version, like in this case here, and just use it to pump the dirt out and then siphon it out directly as well. Earlier in the video I explained why I not completely glue the hardscape outside of the tank. Here you can see that I barely fit with the razor behind the branch, but yeah, luckily I checked that directly and now I'm able to clean the glass easily. With the scissor I'm cutting the offshoots of the ranunculus now, and I use some tweezers to get rid of the offshoots there. Please always keep in mind, if you use high quality scissors, but basically every scissor, wipe them dry after using them. I'm using some Easy Life Easy Carbo here for the brush algae that I mentioned earlier. I'm just using a small cup, putting some of the Easy Carbo solution directly into the cup, and then I use a brush and just brush the spots that are infested with the algae. You should wait for about 15 to 30 minutes before you fill up the water again. If, like in my case, the solution is also getting onto the moss, it might die a bit. If you have anything that shouldn't get in contact, brush a bit more careful than I did it here. Next step is cleaning the glass from the outside and also on the top layer from the inside, so you can easily remove the lime stains that you can see on the top of the glass as well. I haven't shown it in the video, but it's really helpful to do that now, because if you fill up the tank later, it's much harder to remove everything. I really love to use JBL Pro Clean Aqua. It's a glass cleaner that is not harmful for fish and plants, etc. So it's really easy to use. You have the pump spray as in every glass cleaner. And I really use this for every tank. Now I removed the light screen, and with a paper towel and a tweezer I simply got rid of the humidity that somehow collected between the foil and the light screen. Then it's time to fill up the tank with water again. Just keep in mind, after you use the Easy Carbo brush method, that you just wait for 15 to 30 minutes, and it might take up to a few days, and it really depends how much shrimp you have in your tank that really like to eat the dying algae. But then you should be able to quickly see that the algae is going back. Before you attach anything on the tank again, for example the inflow, outflow and the CO2 injector, Just use a landing net, collect all the cuttings, the cutoffs that you have made to have a clean surface again. You can obviously also use a skimmer, but the skimmers are usually not that fine that they easily suck everything in, then they clump up and you quickly have to adjust the inflow rate, and yeah, that's more annoying than anything else, so I always recommend to use a landing net. Wipe everything, the surface clean, and then you're good to go. The tank looked absolutely stunning after the cleanup. I decided to take out the CO2 injector again because I thought it's really worth taking a shot here. Even though it's not the final shot, it's always good to take an in-between final shot, I call it. And with that you can determine whether you want to do some changes or not before you take a final image. Even though it's not for a contest, it's really helpful. And unfortunately I only have a very short clip. I really play this in slow motion now. I'm using a hairdryer here to have some very nice ripple effect on the surface of the aquarium. And after some cropping and some tone correction, you can see this very nice photo I took here. And this is the best moment ever. Attaching the in and out flow, attach the tubing, and then finally click on the button to turn on the filter again and enjoy your aquascape completely clean and maybe with a good drink or a hot cup of tea. Thank you for watching. A comment, a question, and obviously a follow is very appreciated. Thanks a lot everybody. Have a great time. Happy scaping.